Let me paint you a picture. Two people, same age, same city, similar incomes, both decide in January 2026 that this is finally the year they get serious about money. Person A spends 3 weeks researching the best stocks, watches hours of YouTube, opens a brokerage account, buys a few trending stocks they heard about, checks the apps 17 times a day, panics when something drops, sells, waits, tries again. By December, they've made some gains, lost some gains, and their portfolio is roughly where it started. Maybe slightly up, maybe slightly down. They're exhausted. They feel like investing is basically gambling with extra steps. Person B does something that looks almost boring in comparison. They follow a simple, structured strategy. They don't chase trends. They don't check their account obsessively. They don't try to time the market or find the next big thing. By December, Person B is meaningfully closer to $100,000, not because they got lucky, not because they had more money to start, but because they understood something that most people who are new to investing completely miss. And that thing, that single strategic difference, is exactly what this video is about. Because getting from $0 to $100,000 in investing isn't really about picking the right stocks. It's about understanding a system. And once you understand the system, the path becomes surprisingly clear. Let's build it from scratch. Here's the mistake that kills most people's investing journey before it even really starts. They think the goal is to find the right investment, find the right stock, the right crypto, the right fund, the hot sector of 2026, the thing that's about to go up. If they can just identify that one thing and get in at the right time, everything else figures itself out. This is the gambling mindset dressed up in investing clothes, and it is extraordinarily common, not because people are naive, but because this is how investing gets talked about in most media, on most platforms, and in most casual conversations. What are you investing in right now is almost always the first question people ask. Not what's your strategy, not how are you managing risk, not what's your timeline, just what are you buying? And the psychological reason this happens is fascinating. Our brains are wired for narrative. We are pattern-seeking creatures who love a good story. I bought this stock and it went up 300% is a story. It has drama, tension, a hero, a reward. I put money into index funds every month and let it compound for 5 years is not a story. It's just a habit, and habits don't go viral. So we end up with a culture where people are chasing stories instead of building systems, and the result is that most people who start investing either lose money, stall out, or give up entirely, not because investing is hard, but because they were playing the wrong game from the beginning. The path from $0 to $100,000 is not exciting. I'm going to be honest with you about that up front, but it is absolutely achievable. And the strategy I'm going to walk you through is one that works whether you're starting with $500 or $5,000, whether you have a high income or a modest one, and whether markets are going up, sideways, or through a rough patch. 1. Before you invest a single dollar. I know you want to jump straight to the investing part, but hear me out. Because skipping this phase is the single most common reason people start investing and then have to pull their money out 3 months later, which is one of the worst things you can do for your long-term results. Before you invest, you need 2 things in place. The first is a financial floor. This means a small emergency fund, not huge. We're not talking 6 months of expenses right now, just enough that a surprise expense doesn't force you to liquidate your investments at the wrong time. Think $1,000 to $2,000 minimum. If you don't have this yet, this is your first financial goal of 2026. Build it. Keep it in a high-yield savings account where it earns something while it sits there, then move to investing. The second is a clear debt picture. Not all debt needs to be eliminated before you invest. A mortgage, a student loan with a low interest rate, you can invest while carrying that. But high-interest debt, especially credit card debt sitting at 20% or more interest, paying that down gives you a guaranteed 20% return on every dollar you put toward it. No investment in 2026 can reliably beat that. So if you're carrying high-interest debt, attacking it is literally the highest return investment you can make right now. Once you have your floor in place and your toxic debt under control, you are ready to build. 3. Understanding what you're actually trying to do. Getting to $100,000 is a milestone, but it helps to understand why that milestone matters so much. Financial experts often call $100,000 the first inflection point. It's the point where compound interest starts to become genuinely visible and tangible. Before you hit six figures, compound growth is happening, but it feels slow. After $100,000, the numbers start working in your favor in a way that begins to feel almost magical. Here's a simple example. If you have $10,000 invested and it grows 10% in a year, you made $1,000. Nice, but not life-changing. If you have $100,000 invested and it grows 10%, you made $10,000 without doing anything extra. That's a month's salary for a lot of people, earned entirely by money that was already working for you. And at $500,000, that same 10% return is $50,000. That's approaching financial independence territory. That's the number that starts whispering, maybe you don't have to work forever. But none of that is accessible without crossing $100,000 first. So the first $100,000 is not just a number, it is the foundation on which every other wealth milestone gets built. And that means it deserves a real, intentional strategy, not guesswork, not trend chasing, not gambling. 3. The core investment framework for 2026. Here's the actual strategy, broken down simply. 3. Determine your monthly investment number. This is the most important number in your entire financial life right now. Not your salary, not your portfolio value, your monthly contribution. Why? Because in the early stages of building wealth, the amount you consistently invest every month matters far more than the returns you earn. A 12% market return year barely moves the needle if you're only investing $50 a month. But investing $500 a month at even a modest 7% return gets you to $100,000 in roughly 10 years. Push that to $800 or $1,000 a month, and you're looking at 5 to 7 years. The math is simple and merciless. Calculate your income, subtract your actual necessary expenses, not your current spending, your necessary spending. The gap between those two numbers is your raw investing fuel. Even if that number is small right now, start there. Then make it increasing a priority over the year. A good target is 20% of your take-home income towards investing in wealth building. If that feels impossible right now, start at 10% and build toward it over the year. The habit matters more than the initial amount. 4. Choose your investment vehicle wisely. Here's where most beginners get lost, overwhelmed, and paralyzed. There are thousands of investment options: stocks, ETFs, index funds, REITs, bonds, crypto, commodities. Where do you even start? The answer for getting from $0 to $100,000 is simpler than the financial media wants you to believe. For most people, especially in the accumulation phase, which is exactly the phase you're in, the single most powerful and proven tool available is a broad market index fund or ETF. Let me explain what that actually is without the jargon. An index fund is basically a basket that holds a tiny piece of hundreds or thousands of companies at once. When you buy into it, you're not betting on one company, you're betting on the overall market, on the idea that the economy, across the long term, will grow. And historically, across every decade, every crisis, every crash, every recession, the broad market has always eventually recovered and grown. You are not trying to beat the market, you are trying to capture the market's returns, consistently, automatically, over time. And that approach, practiced with discipline, has made more ordinary people wealthy than any stock-picking strategy ever has. The most popular examples are funds that track indices like the S&P 500, which holds the 500 largest companies in the United States, or a total world market fund that captures global growth. These are not glamorous. They will never be the subject of an exciting conversation at a dinner party, but they work. Quietly and consistently, they work. 5. Use tax-advantaged accounts first. Before you open a standard brokerage account, check what tax-advantaged options are available to you in your country.
In the United States, this means maxing out your 401k contributions up to at least your employer match. That match is literally free money, a 50 to 100% instant return, and not using it is one of the most expensive mistakes a working person can make. Beyond that, a Roth IRA is an extraordinary tool. Money goes in after tax, grows tax-free, and comes out in retirement tax-free. If you're outside the US, equivalent vehicles exist: ISAs in the UK, RRSPs and TFSAs in Canada, superannuation in Australia. The specific wrapper differs, but the principle is universal. Shelter your investments from tax wherever legally possible, because taxes on investment gains, compounded over decades, represent an enormous reduction in your final wealth number. Inside those accounts, invest in the broad market index funds we just talked about. 6. Automate everything. This is the step that separates the people who actually get there from the people who mean to get there. Set up an automatic transfer on the same day your paycheck lands, before you see the money in your main account, before you have a chance to spend it, before life gives you a reason to delay it. This is called paying yourself first, and it works because it removes the decision from the equation. You don't have to summon willpower every month to invest. It just happens. And what happens automatically, consistently across years and years, is what builds wealth. The psychology here is critical. Humans are terrible at consistently making optimal decisions when those decisions require active effort every time. But humans are actually quite good at maintaining systems they set up once. Automation converts investing from a decision into a behavior, and behaviors, unlike decisions, don't require motivation. 7. Stop watching and start waiting. Once you have your contributions automated and your investments in place, the single most important thing you can do is almost nothing. Check in quarterly, rebalance once or twice a year if needed, make sure your contributions are still going in, and otherwise let the engine run. This is psychologically the hardest part because markets move, sometimes violently. There will be weeks in 2026 where your portfolio drops 5 or 8 or even 15%. There will be news events that make it feel like everything is collapsing. And in those moments, the brain will scream at you to do something, to protect yourself, to get out. This instinct is ancient and completely counterproductive in investing. The people who panic sell during downturns lock in their losses and miss the recovery. The people who stay in, who keep their automated contributions going even when markets are falling, are actually buying more shares at lower prices. They're accumulating more of the asset during the sale. Staying invested during volatility is not passive. It is one of the most active and disciplined decisions you can make. Here's what I really want you to understand about the $0 to $100,000 journey. The biggest obstacle between you and that milestone is not the market, it's not the economy, it's not your income, it's not which funds you pick or which platform you use. It's your own psychology in the moments when the strategy feels boring or slow or frightening. There's a concept called the behavior gap, coined by a financial planner named Carl Richards, which describes the difference between the returns the market produces and the returns the average investor actually receives. And historically, that gap is enormous. The market might return 9 or 10% annually over a long period, but the average investor earns significantly less, not because of fees, not because of bad fund choices, but because of behavior. Because they bought high and sold low, because they chased performance, because they panicked, because they stopped investing during hard stretches and missed the recovery. The single greatest investment skill you can develop in 2026 is not stock analysis. It is not macroeconomic forecasting. It is not understanding technical charts. It is emotional regulation, the ability to stay the course when every instinct tells you to react. And here's the beautiful paradox of all this. The strategy that produces the best long-term results is also the most boring strategy to execute. It requires the least activity. It demands the least expertise. It needs almost no maintenance, which means getting from $0 to $100,000 is genuinely, absolutely accessible to anyone who commits to the system and protects themselves from their own worst impulses. The market is a wealth-building machine. You just have to stay in the seat long enough to let it work. Let me give you a concrete action plan for 2026. In January, do 3 things. Build or confirm your emergency buffer exists. Audit your high-interest debt and create an attack plan if any exists. Then, calculate your monthly investment number. What can you honestly commit to every single month, no matter what? In February, open your investment account if you don't already have one. Prioritize tax-advantaged accounts first. Choose a simple broad market index fund or ETF. Set up the automatic contribution. Done. For the remaining 10 months of 2026, your job is to not interfere with the system you just built. Resist the urge to check daily. Resist the urge to change strategy every time a new trend emerges. Resist the urge to pull money out when markets get scary. If you want to add complexity later, maybe you want to allocate a small percentage to individual stocks or a specific sector you believe in, do it with a small defined portion of your portfolio, never more than 10 to 15% of your total. Keep the engine, the broad market index contributions, running untouched. And every time you get a raise, a bonus, or any income increase, direct a meaningful portion of it into your investment account before your lifestyle has a chance to absorb it. This is how the timeline accelerates, not through windfalls, through consistently increasing the amount the machine gets to work with. Let me leave you with this. $100,000 is not a number that happens to lucky people. It's not a number that requires a trust fund or a tech salary or perfect market timing. It is a number that happens to consistent people, disciplined people, patient people, people who understood that wealth is built in the moments of excitement. It's built in the months and years of quiet, automated, unremarkable habit. The strategy I walked you through today isn't new, it isn't complex, it isn't secret, but the vast majority of people who hear it will not follow it, not because they don't believe it works, but because somewhere along the way, life will get in the way, or the market will get scary, or something more exciting will come along, or it will just feel too slow. The ones who follow it anyway, who stay boring on purpose, who keep contributing when it feels pointless, who let the machine run even when the news is terrifying, those are the people who look up in 5 or 7 years and find themselves staring at a number they once thought was reserved for other people. That number can be yours. The machine is simple, the strategy is clear. The only question that's left is whether you're going to start it this week or whether you're going to wait for the perfect moment that is never going to quite arrive. Start now. Automate it. Stay in. That's the whole strategy.